Shilloi Lake, nestled in the southeastern district of Land, is far more than just a beautiful body of water. It is a place steeped in legend, mystery, and a sense of awe that draws travelers and locals alike. From above, its outline is uncanny. It resembles the footprint of a colossal human, as though a giant once walked through the region, leaving an eternal mark on the landscape. This unique shape alone intrigues onlookers, but it's the tales and history surrounding Shilloi that have truly captivated generations. As locals say, Shilloi Lake is not just a destination, it's a living story, one that continues to unfold with each whisper of the wind over its still waters. The legend of Shilloi Lake begins with a powerful goddess, revered by the ancient inhabitants, who took the form of a majestic serpent. This wasn't just any serpent, but one that shimmered with the colors of the dawn, her scales glowing in hues of gold and emerald. She embarked on a journey to find a place she could call home, a sanctuary that reflected her divine essence. Her quest led her through the eastern region of Myanmar, a land rich with dense forests and vast plains. She explored many areas, including the famed Yam Chong tree, an ancient tree believed to house spirits of the earth, and the Mutro Bot Narrow Plains, a region known for its fertile but confined lands. However, neither of these places satisfied the goddess. Their limited space felt restrictive to her grandeur, and so she continued her journey, moving ever westward. After traversing many miles, she finally reached a place known as Shatu, the present site of Shilloi Lake. The moment she arrived, she felt an overwhelming sense of peace wash over her, a feeling unlike any other she had encountered. The air here was different, softer, as if nature itself welcomed her presence. The earth beneath her serpent form pulsed gently, as though it too recognized its new guardian. It was at this moment the goddess knew her search had ended. She had found her home. As the goddess settled in Shatu, something extraordinary began to happen. The once dry and arid land beneath her transformed. Slowly, water started to rise, fed by underground springs that seemed to awaken in response to her presence. The water gently filled the basin where she had rested, creating what would later become Shilloi Lake. It wasn't an immediate process. This was no mere flood. The lake's formation was gradual, as if nature itself was carefully sculpting a masterpiece. Over time, what was once barren land became a shimmering, pristine lake, its surface calm and reflective, as though it mirrored the serenity of the goddess herself. But this transformation did not go unnoticed. The early settlers of the region, a small but resilient ethnic clan known as the Lunar, witnessed the miraculous formation of Shilloi Lake. The Lunar clan, who had lived off the land for generations, were deeply spiritual people, attuned to the rhythms of the earth and the sky. They saw the lake's formation as a sacred event, a divine blessing from the goddess. To them, the water symbolized life, prosperity, and a connection to something far greater than themselves. As they tilled the fertile lands around the lake, they often whispered prayers of gratitude, believing the goddess watched over their harvests. Shilloi Lake became the lifeblood of the Lunar clan, not just a source of water, but a spiritual center, where they came to reflect, seek guidance, and give thanks for the abundance the lake brought them. One day, as the Lunar clan continued to thrive around the ever-growing lake, an event occurred that would change their fate forever. It was a day like any other. Clear skies, a warm sun shining over the fields, and the rhythmic hum of life in the village. The clan had decided to expand their agricultural efforts, eager to cultivate new land near the water's edge. Unbeknownst to them, they were now venturing into the very area where the goddess's influence was strongest, the sacred grounds where Shilloi Lake had emerged. The soil was rich, more fertile than any they had seen before, and the villagers worked with renewed energy, unaware of the divine transformation that had been unfolding beneath their feet. As they plowed the land and planted their seeds, they began to notice subtle, unexplainable changes. The ground, once solid and dependable, seemed to shift ever so slightly beneath their feet, as though it had a life of its own. Some villagers claimed to hear faint whispers carried on the wind, voices they could not understand, but that sent shivers down their spines. Yet, determined to provide for their families, they pushed on, unaware that their actions were intertwining their destinies with the mystical forces surrounding Shilloi Lake. This moment would mark the beginning of a new chapter in the history of the Lunar clan, one that would forever connect them to the mysterious and powerful essence of Shilloi Lake. It was on a peaceful afternoon, during the season of harvest, that a young couple from the Lunar clan faced an unimaginable ordeal. The day had been calm, the sun casting a gentle warmth over the village, as the couple, new parents to a precious newborn daughter, finished nursing their child in their small farm hut. The mother, with loving care, tucked the baby into a cradle woven from the strongest reeds, ensuring her daughter was safe and comfortable. Confident that the baby would sleep soundly, the couple set off to the fields to continue their work, their hearts filled with the simple joy of family and routine. Hours passed, and though the work in the fields was demanding, the mother began to feel an unease creeping into her mind. Something wasn't right. She realized that in all this time, she hadn't heard her daughter cry, a sound she had grown accustomed to during their brief time as parents. At first, she tried to dismiss her worry, thinking perhaps the baby was simply sleeping soundly. But as time went on, her concern deepened into dread. Unable to ignore her instincts any longer, she hurried back to the hut. As she reached the doorway, a chill ran down her spine. The hut, once filled with the warmth and comfort of her child's presence, now felt strangely cold. Her eyes scanned the room in panic, and then her worst fear was realized. The cradle was empty. Her baby was gone. The mother's heart sank into despair, and without thinking, she screamed out in panic, "Where is my child?" Her voice echoed across the fields, filled with desperation and fear. The nearby workers, hearing her frantic cries, immediately rushed to her side. They quickly formed a search party, their faces grim as they scoured the area, calling out the baby's name into the open fields and woods that bordered the village. Fear gripped them all. The disappearance of a child was unheard of in their tight-knit community. Hour after hour passed, and yet no trace of the child was found. The sun began to set, casting long shadows over the land as the couple's hope started to dwindle. The villagers searched relentlessly, but the baby seemed to have vanished without a trace. Whispers of dark possibilities spread through the group. Could it have been a wild animal? Or worse, was there something supernatural at work, tied to the mysterious lake that had always seemed to hold untold secrets? Just when all hope seemed lost, the silence of the night was broken by the sound of a familiar, heart-piercing cry. The mother's eyes widened, her pulse quickened. She recognized that cry. With trembling hands, she and her husband rushed toward the lake, where the cry had come from. To their utter astonishment, they saw their baby floating in the center of the lake, gently rising above the water's surface as if held by unseen hands. The lake, calm and glowing in the moonlight, reflected the infant's tiny form. The scene was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. The water shimmered with an ethereal glow, casting a soft light on the child, but the parents, helpless on the shore, were unable to reach her. The parents stood frozen in disbelief, their hearts torn between fear and awe at the sight before them. The baby floated just out of reach, cradled by the lake's still waters as if held by invisible forces. The surface of the water sparkled under the soft glow of the moon, giving the impression that the child was bathed in light from another world. The air around the lake grew strangely quiet, as if even nature itself held its breath, witnessing this surreal moment. Desperate, the mother called out to her child, her voice trembling with both hope and despair. The father, equally frantic, waded into the shallow edges of the lake, reaching out with all his might. But as they approached, the baby seemed to drift further, the water moving her gently away from them. The lake, once a source of sustenance and tranquility, now appeared to have a will of its own, protecting the child yet keeping her beyond their grasp. As the couple stood on the shore, helpless and heartbroken, they began to understand that this was no ordinary event. It was a sign, a manifestation of something far beyond their comprehension. The lake, it seemed, had taken their daughter into its depths, not out of malice, but as part of a larger, mystical plan. The parents' sorrow mixed with a profound sense of awe as they realized they were witnessing an extraordinary moment, one that would forever change their lives and deepen the village's connection to Shilloi Lake. The following day, news of the mysterious event spread like wildfire throughout the village. The disappearance of the child and the strange occurrence at Shilloi Lake left the villagers in shock, their emotions swinging between sorrow and disbelief. Rumors and speculation filled the air, with some claiming that the lake had always been more than just a body of water, while others feared it had become cursed. Driven by grief and anger, the villagers gathered in the central square to discuss what could be done. Fueled by their collective frustration and the pain of losing one of their own, the villagers decided to take drastic action. They vowed to drain the lake, believing that if they could reduce its size, they might find some clue as to what had happened to the baby, or at least reclaim the land for their own. They convinced themselves that Shilloi Lake had become a threat, no longer the serene water they once revered, but a mysterious force that had taken one of their children. United in purpose, the villagers began digging a channel, a massive effort to divert the water away from the lake and shrink its size. Men, women, and even older children worked tirelessly under the hot sun, using whatever tools they had: shovels, buckets, and even their bare hands. The ground was hard, but their determination was stronger. They believed that by confronting the lake, they could wrestle control back from the supernatural forces they thought had taken hold. As the day wore on and the villagers became more exhausted, doubts began to creep in. The lake's waters seemed endless, and for every foot of earth they moved, it felt as though the lake pushed back. Still, they pressed on, driven by a mix of desperation and hope. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the land, they knew they couldn't continue. Exhausted and weary, they abandoned their efforts for the night, hoping that the next day would bring new strength and clearer answers. That night, as the villagers lay in their homes, utterly drained from the day's grueling work, something unexpected happened. In the stillness of their sleep, each of them experienced the same vivid dream. A powerful voice, deep and resonant, echoed through their minds, filling them with a sense of dread and awe. "If you continue your work of draining the lake," the voice warned, "I will take 50 of you to make my pillow, another 50 for my footstool, and 50 each for my left and right arms." The dream was more than just a vision. It felt real, as though the voice came from the lake itself, resonating with an ancient authority that they couldn't ignore. It wasn't a threat made in anger, but rather a statement of fact, as though the lake had its own balance and would exact a price if disturbed. The voice carried the weight of the divine, reminding them of the lake's mystical origins, a place shaped by forces far greater than themselves. When the villagers awoke the next morning, they were shaken. Each person described the same dream, the same warning, and they realized that this was no mere coincidence. Fear swept through the community, a fear that ran deeper than their grief for the missing child. They now understood that Shilloi Lake wasn't just a part of their landscape. It was a living entity, one with the power to protect or punish. Gathering once again, the villagers discussed what to do. The message from the lake was clear: continue with their plans, and the price would be the lives of many. Weighed down by the enormity of the warning, they realized they had no choice. The risks were too great. With heavy hearts and a sense of resignation, the villagers decided to abandon their efforts to drain the lake. The villagers, now fully aware of the lake's mysterious power, reluctantly returned to their lives, though things would never be the same. Their connection to Shilloi Lake had shifted, from one of reverence for its natural beauty to one of deep respect, tinged with fear. No longer would they consider altering the lake's form or attempting to control its waters. Instead, they accepted that the lake, with all its unexplained wonders and secrets, was something beyond their control, perhaps even sacred. The channel they had begun to dig remained, a lasting scar on the landscape, measuring about 4x4 meters on the western side of the lake. Over time, it became overgrown with wild plants and grasses, but it never fully disappeared. It stood as a reminder, not just of their failed attempt to drain the lake, but of the events that had transpired, events that would be passed down through generations. For the Lunar clan, the channel was a symbol of their surrender to forces greater than themselves, a lesson in humility in the face of nature's power. They spoke often of the goddess who had taken the form of a serpent, whispering to their children that the lake was still under her watchful eye. The story of the missing child, now seen as a mystical offering to the lake, grew into legend, told around campfires and during long nights, becoming part of the very identity of the people who lived by Shiloh's shores. Though their hearts still ached for the lost child, the villagers found some solace in the belief that the baby had been taken by the lake for a reason, perhaps to join the goddess in her eternal guardianship of the waters. As time passed, the legend of the abducted child became intertwined with the very identity of Shilloi Lake. The villagers came to believe that the child, taken by the goddess, had not perished but had been chosen for a special purpose. According to the elders, the baby had been adopted by the goddess herself, destined to become the lake's eternal protector. It was said that the child had grown up within the mystical realm of the lake, far beyond the reach of ordinary mortals, and that she now reigned as the Queen of Shilloi, guarding the waters and ensuring peace for those who lived nearby. This belief only deepened as the years went by. Despite the many visitors who came to fish, swim, or sail upon the lake's surface, no harm ever befell anyone within its waters. The lake seemed almost enchanted, a place of serene safety amidst the wild landscape. No tragic accidents occurred, no one drowned, and even in the harshest of weather, Shilloi remained calm, as if the queen herself kept watch over all who ventured near. This only added to the allure of the lake, making it a beloved and respected place, known far and wide for its mystical protection. The villagers, while still mourning the loss of the child, found comfort in this belief. They spoke of her not with sadness, but with pride, as the chosen one who had been given the honor of protecting the sacred waters. In this way, the story of the Queen of Shilloi became a vital part of the village's lore, a reminder that the lake was much more than a natural formation. It was a living, breathing force, watched over by a spirit who had once been one of their own. The legend of Shilloi Lake continued to grow, and with it, the reverence for its queen. The villagers, as well as visitors from distant lands, began to honor the lake with offerings, small tokens of respect left at its shorelines. They would leave flowers, woven baskets, and sometimes even food, believing that these gifts would please the queen of the lake and the goddess who had chosen her. Festivals were held in the village, marking the anniversary of the child's disappearance, but instead of sorrow, these gatherings were celebrations of the lake's protection and the mystical presence that watched over them. Visitors, drawn by the stories, would often come seeking the serenity and peace that Shilloi was known for. The lake's tranquil waters, surrounded by dense forests and rolling hills, created an almost magical atmosphere. Fishermen would speak of feeling an unexplainable calm while casting their lines into the water, and boaters would note how the lake's surface remained undisturbed, even when storms raged just beyond the tree line. Shilloi was a place of balance, a sanctuary from the chaos of the world. Despite its serenity, the lake still carried an air of mystery. The villagers would often warn newcomers not to underestimate the power that lay beneath the surface. While Shilloi welcomed all, it was understood that the lake had its own rules dictated by the goddess and enforced by the queen. Those who showed respect to the lake were granted safe passage, but any attempt to disturb its waters or disrespect its presence could result in consequences beyond human understanding. The villagers, having learned their lesson from the past, made sure that these stories were passed on, ensuring that the balance between the lake and its people remained intact. Over time, the deeper history of Shilloi Lake began to surface, thanks to the village elders who had preserved ancient knowledge passed down through generations. The lake's original name, Isam, was a word that resonated with the past, given by the early ancestors of the lunar clan. The name came from the Latara language, an ancient dialect no longer spoken widely, meaning stagnant or still water. The name perfectly captured the stillness and calm of the lake's surface, which seldom rippled, even on windy days. The elders spoke of how Isam reflected the lake's motionless nature, a mirror that revealed the inner peace of the land. However, it wasn't just the stillness that defined Shilloi. As the lake became more central to the village's identity, its name evolved. Shilloi, derived from another Latara word meaning guarded or protected, came to symbolize not only the physical lake, but also the divine guardianship of the child-turned-queen. The dual names, Isam and Shilloi, combined to paint a complete picture of the lake's personality, a serene and peaceful body of water, yet one fiercely protected by forces beyond the material world. Together, the names reflected the deep respect and spiritual significance that the lake held for the people of the region. Even today, these names are whispered by those who visit, many of them unaware of their full meaning. But for the villagers, these words are sacred, symbols of the lake's rich history and its connection to both the physical world and the mystical realms. It's not just a place to admire, but a living reminder of how deeply intertwined the natural and the spiritual worlds truly are. Though Shilloi Lake had become a symbol of peace and protection, it also retained an undeniable sense of mystery. Over the years, as the village grew and more travelers visited, some began referring to the lake as the Dark Continent, a title both alluring and ominous. This name didn't stem from any malevolent force within the lake, but rather from the profound unknowns that surrounded it. Even the most frequent visitors could not fully grasp the lake's depths, both literal and metaphorical. While it appeared calm and welcoming, everyone sensed that it held secrets beneath its surface, hidden from human understanding. The nickname Dark Continent only added to the lake's allure. It drew explorers, mystics, and scholars, all eager to unlock the lake's mysteries. Some claimed that during quiet, foggy mornings, you could see figures moving just beneath the water, as though ancient spirits still roamed the lake's depths. Others whispered of rare moments when the water would glow faintly, not from the moon or sun, but from an inner light, as if the lake itself were alive, breathing and watching. These eerie accounts only strengthened the belief that Shilloi was more than a natural body of water. It was a portal to something greater. Despite its tranquil appearance, no one could ever fully predict what might happen next at Shilloi Lake. The villagers, well aware of these stories, respected the lake's boundaries. They understood that Shilloi wasn't a place to be tamed or conquered. It was a realm to be honored and respected. Visitors would often leave with more questions than answers, a feeling of having been in the presence of something ancient, something that transcended the human experience. And while they left in peace, they could never shake the sense that Shilloi held secrets they might never uncover. For those who lived near Shilloi Lake, the mysterious events that occurred over the centuries became woven into the very fabric of their lives. The villagers had long since accepted the lake's mystical qualities, and instead of fearing them, they embraced them as part of their heritage. Each year, during the time of the full moon, they held a ceremony to honor both the lake and the queen, who was said to reside within it. This celebration, known as the Festival of the Serpent, was a time of joy and reverence, where the villagers would gather at the lake's edge to offer gifts, perform dances, and tell stories of the lake's origins and the goddess who had shaped their world. The festival was a reminder of the connection between the villagers and the lake, and it served as a moment for reflection on the mysteries that still surrounded it. As part of the ritual, the village elders would recount the tale of the goddess in serpent form who had journeyed far to find her perfect home, and the child who had been taken to become the lake's eternal guardian. These stories were passed down through generations, not as mere folklore, but as a vital part of the community's identity. During the festival, the villagers believed that the lake's queen would watch over them, protecting the village for another year. Offerings of fruit, flowers, and hand-woven items were gently placed into the water, where they would drift away, as if accepted by the unseen forces that governed Shilloi. The villagers felt a deep sense of connection during these ceremonies, as if they were reaffirming their bond with the mystical lake and the spirits that watched over it. The Festival of the Serpent was both a celebration of life and a reminder that Shilloi Lake was not just a part of their landscape. It was a sacred place, alive with history, myth, and divine protection. As the festival continued to be celebrated through the years, it began to attract outsiders, curious travelers, scholars, and even the occasional mystic seeking answers from the unknown. The fame of Shilloi Lake spread far beyond the village, reaching distant lands where the story of a lake that housed a divine protector intrigued many. Some came searching for the mythical Queen of Shilloi, hoping to catch a glimpse of her or experience the lake's mystical energy firsthand. Others were drawn by the promise of serenity and beauty, a place untouched by the chaos of the outside world. However, not all who came were driven by curiosity or reverence. A few came with more nefarious intentions, eager to exploit the lake's natural resources or uncover its secrets for personal gain. But these individuals were met with strange and unsettling occurrences. Tools would mysteriously disappear. Boats would overturn for no apparent reason, and on rare occasions, they would return from their explorations with wild stories of seeing shadowy figures beneath the water or hearing disembodied voices calling their names. These experiences served as a warning. The lake was not to be trifled with. Those who sought to disturb its balance quickly learned that Shilloi Lake was a place that protected itself. The villagers, ever protective of their sacred waters, would often caution visitors against venturing too far into the lake or attempting to disrupt its natural flow. They knew that while Shilloi was a place of peace, it was also a place of power, one that could defend itself against those who did not show it the proper respect. As a result, most outsiders who visited left with a deep sense of awe and respect, understanding that the stories they had heard were not just legends, but reflections of a living truth that flowed through the waters of Shilloi Lake. As word of Shilloi Lake continued to spread, it drew the attention of scientists and researchers eager to study the lake's unique properties. They were fascinated by the fact that, despite the lake's increasing popularity and the growing number of visitors, there had been no recorded incidents of drowning or accidents. In fact, it seemed that Shilloi possessed an almost supernatural calm, a phenomenon that defied the laws of nature. The water was said to have healing qualities, and some even claimed that it had an unexplainable ability to calm the mind and body. Intrigued by these reports, researchers began conducting studies on the water itself, taking samples to analyze its composition. To their surprise, the lake's water contained minerals that were not typically found in the surrounding region. These minerals, though natural, were present in concentrations that seemed to enhance the feeling of tranquility experienced by those who spent time at the lake. However, while science could explain the mineral content, it could not account for the profound sense of peace and safety that many felt while near the water. The scientific community remained baffled by the lake's apparent lack of danger. Despite the growing activity on and around the water, fishing, boating, swimming, Shilloi Lake seemed immune to the kinds of accidents and tragedies that often befell other lakes. For the villagers, this only confirmed what they had known all along. The lake was protected by forces beyond the physical world. The Queen of Shilloi, the goddess in serpent form, still watched over the waters, ensuring that peace and harmony reigned within her domain. Despite the continued interest from outsiders, the villagers of Shilloi maintained a delicate balance between welcoming visitors and preserving the sanctity of the lake. They understood that while the lake's mysteries drew people from far and wide, its true essence could only be appreciated by those who approached it with respect and humility. For the villagers, Shilloi was more than just a tourist attraction or a place for recreation. It was a living part of their heritage, a sacred space that connected them to their ancestors, the goddess, and the queen who watched over them. As a result, the villagers took it upon themselves to be stewards of the lake. They kept the shores clean and ensured that those who came to fish or swim understood the importance of treating the waters with care. Though they welcomed those who sought to experience the peace and serenity of Shilloi, they also quietly observed visitors to ensure no one disrespected the sacred waters. The lake, after all, had its own way of dealing with those who didn't honor it, but the villagers believed it was their responsibility to protect the lake from such encounters as much as they could. The stories of Shilloi's power continued to spread, and with them, a deeper understanding of the lake's significance. People began to see Shilloi not just as a natural wonder, but as a place where the physical world met the spiritual, a gateway to something beyond the ordinary. Some spoke of feeling the presence of the goddess as they stood at the water's edge, while others claimed to have dreams of the queen, her form shimmering beneath the surface, watching over the land and its people. Through all of this, the villagers remained humble guardians, ensuring that Shilloi Lake remained a place of peace, beauty, and mystery for generations to come. As the years went by, the stories surrounding Shilloi Lake only grew in depth and complexity. The villagers often whispered about moments when the veil between the world of the living and the spiritual seemed to thin at the lake. Elders recalled how, on certain nights when the moon was full and the mist hung low over the water, strange lights could be seen dancing across the lake's surface. Some believed these lights were the spirits of those who had passed on, guardians of the lake who had joined the goddess and the queen in their eternal watch. Occasionally, visitors would report strange experiences, sudden, inexplicable feelings of calm that seemed to wash over them as they sat by the water. Some claimed they had seen glimpses of something in the depths, not a reflection of the sky, but rather figures moving just beneath the surface. These accounts, though rare, added to the legend of the lake as a place where the veil between the natural and the supernatural was thin, where those open to its mysteries might experience something beyond explanation. Yet, despite the lake's otherworldly atmosphere, there was always a sense of safety. The villagers knew that the lake was both a protector and a gateway to the unknown, but they never feared it. They trusted in the balance that had been established over centuries, understanding that Shilloi was a place that required reverence, not fear. The more time people spent at the lake, the more they came to appreciate this balance, a balance that connected the living world to something greater, something ancient and sacred. To this day, Shilloi Lake continues to be a place of wonder, tranquility, and mystery. Its shimmering waters still draw people from far and wide. Some come seeking peace, while others come in search of answers to the lake's many legends. But no matter the reason, all who visit leave with a sense that they have been in the presence of something extraordinary. The stories of the goddess and the queen of the lake persist, whispered among locals and travelers alike, passed from one generation to the next. The lake remains unchanged, a constant in a world that is ever evolving. The channel dug by the villagers long ago still exists, a silent reminder of the time they tried to tame the lake's power and the warning they received in their dreams. The waters, ever calm and reflective, continue to guard their secrets, offering glimpses of their mysteries only to those who approach with respect and humility. The legacy of Shilloi Lake lives on, not just in the physical beauty of the place, but in the stories that surround it. The tales of a goddess in serpent form, a child taken and transformed into a protector, and a village that learned to live in harmony with the unknown. Shilloi Lake is more than just a body of water. It is a living legend, a place where the past, the present, and the mystical converge in a way that defies explanation. For those who have the privilege of standing on its shores, gazing out across the still surface, the lake offers a reminder. Not all mysteries are meant to be solved, and some places are